If you're a creative person and you're juggling this push-pull of producing creative work whilst managing the demands that come from releasing your work into the world, have I got a video for you? It's this one, and in it I'm reflecting on the realities of being a creative person in today's world and how we can manage our energy, focus, so we don't overextend ourselves. Hi, I'm Steve, and I created Futureative to explore the future of creativity so independent creatives everywhere can navigate the next decade of change. Here, I'm going to be reflecting on how I think it's possible to be creative and to keep showing up in the world with your creative work in hand in a way that doesn't drain us. So I started thinking about this idea when I just had one of those weeks. You know the kind. You've got those projects that you need to be delivered to clients, or you've got your own creative work that you're trying to get back to and stay focused on. You're juggling collaborations. Maybe you're showing up for your team. You're trying to stay on top of the admin and the emails. And there's the realities of the audience building and the marketing and building a business, etc. And all of the things that make a creative career interesting and varied and worth doing are also the things that make it incredibly hard to just sit down and do the work that's rumbling around your mind and pestering your curiosity in the best way, of course. When this happens, or at least what I've been reminding myself of lately, is that it's not just okay, but actually really important to pace ourselves. And by pace ourselves or pace yourself, I don't mean slow down. I don't mean be less ambitious. I don't mean scale down the big picture of the dream. I've been feeling the need to pace myself in order to just keep things moving without feeling overwhelmed. You know, that feeling that we're not doing enough or that not enough is ready. I think that's a reminder that it's time to pause and find a way to pace ourselves. I've been thinking about how when we start showing up in the world with our finished work, we almost always expect our creative output to match what it was before we started doing any marketing. Even though there's a whole bunch more demand on our time and energy now, and thinking through this has kind of helped me in the last few weeks to just pause and reflect on where in my week I can find more space for maybe these two different types of energy that being a creative person demands. We kind of have a creation mode and a connection mode. One where you're locked in on the work itself, and the other where you're in the world interacting with others. When you're in creation mode, well, our energy is flowing into our work. We're just focused on the output of our work. We're coming up with ideas, we're drafting or demoing, we might be drawing, designing, scribbling, whatever it is. It's an experimentation between idea and output. The energy is flowing into the creation itself. And the feedback that we get, the positive reinforcement, it's actually coming from our creative work back to us. So we might reflect as we go. Is this turning into what I want it to turn into? That's the question that kind of steers the creativity. When the answer is yes, even a little bit, it creates this kind of cycle of energy. The work feeds you, you feed the work. Right now, as I speak these words, I am feeling this. And it's something that I do think we have a level of control over. As long as we can set our environment and focus so that we can interact fully with our work, then this is on tap. It's on demand for creatives anytime we want. So our work becomes proactive, or at least in theory, which I'll come back to more in a minute. Now on the other side, when we start showing up in the world with our work, we are now being a lot more reactive. When you start putting your work out into the world, you're now opening yourself up and your work for a range of inputs to start coming your way. You're connecting with others who are connecting with your creations, and all of the work required to publish and share and promote and to build audiences, networks, all of this requires some level of reactivity towards things that are kind of out of your control. And so the feedback that we get doesn't feel at all like the feedback that comes from our creative work. It's now coming from the world. Being a creative person and just making the work is proactive because we're focused purely on our own output. Being a creative person and releasing work into the world is reactive. We are focusing on interacting with inputs things coming our way. These two different modes of energy kind of contradict each other. And so if we just start using the same amount of time every week and go from creating to creating and publishing, well, of course, we're probably going to feel some level of overwhelm, especially if our schedule is already tight. And that's the bit that gets us. That's where I've had to pause lately. We assume we can just maintain our same creative output regardless. And I think this is where a lot of us creatives get stuck. I know I've been that person that's not sure why I can't tap into the right creative headspace to create, or why it felt so daunting to interact online with all the people interacting with work I've published. And I've done this not fully appreciating that maybe there just needs to be more space in the week for these different kind of modes of energy so that it doesn't feel like too much. Maybe hearing all of this sounds super obvious to you, but it genuinely took me a moment to realize that, even though I'm sort of at the beginning stages of publishing content, of course things are going to feel like there's a lot happening. But I'm like, why is it so difficult to keep up with this content plan that's actually relatively simple? I'm like, it is a little bit of a time thing, but I think more than anything, it's been an energy thing and just making sure I'm conscious of when I have the right energy for each different mode and trying to find ways to find more of both energy kind of modes each week, I suppose. When we start off, we usually create this idea that's pretty simple in our head, but complexity always creeps in, and that's definitely what's happened here. It's never as simple as just making something and publishing it. When we open ourselves up to the world, a lot changes in how we manage our weeks and our tasks. Actually, your entire workflows can be tested. This is completely normal. So it becomes less about just simply time blocking and more about maybe understanding how and where we get energy from, and maybe thinking about what in our workflows need to be tweaked or adjusted each week. I know that I need proactive space for both creativity and also for showing up online now. I think this can be a really simple mental model that you can use to just think through each week. I now know I have these two modes I need to be in throughout the week, but also every week this year. So what are the things that matter most to me? I need space to create and I need space to connect. That's it. And so could I just think about where each of these are going each week rather than trying to intertwine them so much? The question for me is becoming, am I creating space and energy for myself to work on the things that are rumbling around in my mind this week? And am I creating the space and energy to show up in the world and connect with others and to give my best self when I'm sharing work I'm making? I think we need to do both things, and thinking through how I'm finding space for both of these is genuinely making both of those energy modes start to come to life. Now, what works for you and me and how we experience energy is obviously going to be different. I'm mostly an introvert. I do have extroverted tendencies. And so I do find that both of these different modes can feed me, but they can both drain me. And so maybe this goes beyond just being introverted and extroverted. And this is just about what kind of inputs and outputs I think feed your soul. I know that's how I'm thinking of it. This is not a sciencey video where I've figured something out. This is just me trying to work through how I interact with creativity and others, and it's usually just reflecting on how those things are feeding my soul. And that's why I think thinking of this as a mental model can be really useful, because us creatives, well, we do kind of crave a bit of both. That hideaway creative flow where it's just you and the work, but also showing up in the world and experiencing other people experiencing what you make. I think we should be looking forward to both of those things more. If we don't look forward to both of those things, well, we're not getting the full creative experience as an artist. If we get these two modes right from ourselves, from an energy standpoint, I'm starting to be more and more convinced that all of the tactics and strategies that might help you market your work become less important if you're just able to find ways to be energized from creating and sharing your work. And if you're doing both of those things intentionally, well, a lot of other stuff starts not mattering as much. Because what you make shouldn't just be put into the world as an afterthought, it should be placed in the world with care. And when you start marketing, your creative work still needs time and attention and its own nurturing. You'll never have enough time for both. So working out how to balance that time and not place too much expectation on yourself for what's possible might be all that matters. So, what about you? How do you find time for both? How do you balance your creative energy and your connection energy? What works for you? And are there any things that you might like to change going forward to find time for both of these things? I'd love to hear your experience so I can learn from you as well. And if you watch this thinking, gee, I wish there was a simple way to manage my creative projects so I don't have too much on my plate at once, well, you might like to check out this video next, where I break down the only two types of projects a creative person really needs. I think it goes hand in hand with managing your creative energy. Enjoy.